There's been a wave of political turmoil recently. The DOJ is pursuing a criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. There's the fallout from the Trump administration's military intervention into Venezuela. The Supreme Court is set to hear oral arguments this month on whether Trump can fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. But the markets seem to be barely flinching. Back in April 2025, Trump's tariff announcements tanked the markets. But this week, even with the DOJ investigating Powell and the looming Supreme Court cases, the S&P 500 hit new highs. Why isn't Wall Street reacting? Well, it kind of is, if you know what to look for. I've covered markets under multiple administrations. Under Trump 2.0, I've noticed that investors seem to be figuring out ways to differentiate political rhetoric from actual policy that'll affect the way business is conducted. In the past, markets have gotten used to political chaos tied to events like wars or elections. Because of that, investors sometimes avoid pricing in the turmoil without seeing a significant escalation, like when tariffs were actually put into place. The market didn't believe the Department of Justice would ever go so far as to investigate a sitting Fed chair. And now, past Fed governors are defending Powell, and some Republicans are pushing back, which you can interpret as the red line being held.
These are individuals who are very humble individuals with a lot of integrity and respect for the system, and the fact that they are weighing in, I think, is quite meaningful. I think the reason it hasn't yet affected the market is, like with a lot that comes out of this administration, there's a lot of noise, and one has to wait from a trading or an information perspective to understand what the actual end result and effect is, and then sort of price in the rub. Whereas now there's a lot to be concerned about, but it's more noise than it is fact.
But there are some signs that investors are at least hesitant about the current landscape. On Monday, safe haven metals like gold and silver shot to all-time highs. Meanwhile, the US dollar lost some value against international counterparts. It's evidence of a major theme called selling America that JP Morgan and others on Wall Street have followed under the Trump administration. Essentially, investors are assigning higher risk premiums to US assets as a result of the rising political instability. And we saw this week, international stocks outperformed US equities, which is typically a sign of a global shift away from US exposure. I think it's safe to say that investors are thinking right now that the Powell investigation won't balloon into a tide change for broader Fed independence like some fear. But if Powell is removed or further pressure is applied to the Fed, we could see the Sell America trade back on. Safe havens could spike once again, and US equities might come under real pressure.